Welkom bij Women Disrupting Tech. Mijn naam is Dirkjan Hupkes en in deze podcast ga ik op ontdekkingsreis in de wereld van vrouwen in de technologiesector. Ik ga in gesprek met vrouwen die in tech werken of oprichter zijn van een tech-startup. Ik ga op zoek naar het antwoord op de vraag hoe zij er wel in geslaagd zijn om succes te hebben. Met andere woorden, hoe zij de technologiesector disrupten. Luister je mee? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech. Thank you for listening. Usually on Women Disrupting Tech, I interview a woman who is disrupting tech to help her find her voice as a role model and to inspire other women to take the leap into tech. Today's episode is a bit different because it's a solo episode. And it starts with a question that I received on LinkedIn from Silvia van Houten. Silvia is the founder and former CEO of Hout, and she now works as an investor at Polestar Capital. Silvia asked me, "Hi Dirkjan, any inkling jumping out at you why there is such a huge funding gap for female-led startups?" Well, thank you very much for this question, Silvia. I think it's a very interesting topic to dive into, and in the previous 38 episodes, my guests have already shared a lot of wisdom about this. So naturally, over time, I've also started to form my own views on this, and that's what this episode is about. One of these views is that the problem, or part of the problem, is in the funding system for tech startups. In the end, what it boils down to is the fact that women are forced to play a game that is inherently not theirs to play. The rules do not match how women are wired, and they do not represent the rule set that women are brought up with, nor their nature. As a result, the system does not play into their strengths. This system is called the milestone-based funding system, and I want to do a short solo about my thesis that this milestone-based funding system is a big reason for the funding gap between female-led startups and male-led or even mixed teams. Before we discuss the milestone-based funding system, let me first provide you with some context on the funding gap. Now, if you look at the numbers on investing in tech startups, you'll see the following stats. Female-led startups, so those are startups that are founded and or led by only women, get about 1 to 2% of the total funding of tech startups. These numbers have been stable for years. Mixed teams, so teams, founding teams and management teams with men and women, historically get about 8 to 12% of the funding. Recent numbers from New York indicate that there is a bit of progress because in the last quarter of 2023, 25% of the money invested in tech startups went to a mixed team. However, the remainder still goes to startups that have only men as founders. Now that you understand what the funding gap is about, let me explain the milestone-based system and explain how I think it works against female founders. The milestone-based funding system is based on rewarding that you achieve milestones as founders. In early stage investing in startups, typically you will see 3 milestones that have to be hit. The first milestone is building a prototype. So can you build your product or service? The second milestone is to go to market. So can you create a market? Can you find customers? Can you actually sell the product? And the third milestone is about growing your business. So can you scale your market? Can you scale your employee base? Can you scale your production, etc.? Now, these milestones are set up and measured in a way that measures the ability to generate money at a later stage. And to understand this fully, you have to know that the system was initially developed to select software unicorns. And for software unicorns, the impact is measured by market domination and the ability to generate a lot of money for their investors. So really selecting the winners. And I'll tell you why this does not work for women in a minute. Before I do that, I want to say that I don't think we don't need milestones. In fact, I think they're a great tool to measure progress. But I think there are three main reasons that the milestone based funding system for tech startups works in a way that is less suitable for women. The first way is that women build businesses to make impact. This impact can be societal or climate change or improvement in female health or reduction of poverty. Anyway, if it generates a lot of money, that's great, but it's not the only reason to build a business. The milestone based system, however, only looks at the ability to generate money, and it doesn't measure nor reward the full impact that women want to make. And therefore, I think it's less appealing to women. Now, of course, I understand that there are segments of venture capital like climate tech and health tech, and there's impact investing that looks at other forms of impact than just the ability to generate money and dominate a market. But those are relatively small segments that you hear about less often. The second reason is that the milestone based funding system is about selecting the winner who will go on to dominate the market. Now, women are more of the collaborative kind, so yes, winning is nice, but participation is also very important. And selecting a winner that goes on to dominate the rest of the market therefore works against the way women are brought up. Finally, like many male founders, women usually start by solving their own problem. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's encouraged and it helps investors to see how much passion you have for the problem and how knowledgeable you are. However, most investors are men and they tend not to understand the problems that women face. You'll see this specifically in health tech, but also in other domains. As a result, most investors fail to see the business case and they don't invest in female led startups. To summarize, the milestone based system does not measure and reward the full impact that women want to make, it does not reward collaboration, and most investors, the men, don't understand the problems that the founders, women, are solving. So this is why I think the milestone-based funding system does not play into the strong points that women have and that female founders have. I understand that it's much more nuanced and complex than I've just described it, and for sure there's still a lot to explore, which I will do in future episodes. If you'd like me to discuss particular research or if you like me to interview particular guests, feel free to send me a DM or an email. And more in general, I'd love to know what you think of this episode and about the podcast in general. To contact me, you can reach me via email at Dirkjan Hupkes at womendisruptingtech.blog, or like Silvia, you can simply send me a DM on LinkedIn. With that, I'd like to thank Silvia van Houten for inspiring me to do this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, and my girlfriend Shangita for her patience and for helping me structure my thoughts. That's it for this episode of Women Disrupting Tech. Thank you for listening. If you want to listen to more episodes or if you want to find the show notes, you can go to womendisruptingtech.blog. There you can also become a member of the Women Disrupting Tech community. And besides getting access to exclusive Women Disrupting Tech events, it also has the benefit that you get an email every Friday morning when a new podcast episode is published. If this is your first episode and you like what you hear, I invite you to follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Good Pods. And if you are a regular listener, I would invite you to give me a rating or a review, because that way you help other people find the podcast. That's it. Once again, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode.